Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining our session, Implementing Peace and Building Empathy with Sarah Campbell. I'm Margaret Johnson, your Harmony Content Manager. Before we begin, I'd like to ask you to mute yourselves and turn your cameras off. We will have a section where we'll send you to breakout rooms, and at that time, we'll ask you to turn on your cameras and mics. We will be recording this session, except during those breakout rooms, and you can access the recording from your virtual attendee hub. We've also provided you a note catcher document located in the session description on the attendee hub. This resource will serve two purposes: to guide your learning during the session and used as discussion prompts in the breakout. If you have any questions, please do use the chat box. We'll be monitoring it along the way. It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Sarah Campbell. She's an English literature teacher at Ketchikan High School in Alaska. Each of the speakers' bios are in the event platform. Please do read about Sarah at your convenience. Welcome, Sarah. We're glad you're with us today.
Thank you very much for that warm introduction. My sound is good? Okay, great, thank you. So good evening or afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from today. And thank you to Sanford and to National University for arranging this virtual summit. This has been a tremendous learning experience for me. And then just really, I'm appreciative for this opportunity to talk to you today about peace education and building empathy. As Margaret said, I am from Ketchikan, Alaska, and Alaska is a very, very big state. Maybe some of you have visited before, but just in case you haven't, Ketchikan is located in the southeast section. You can see that little heart on the computer screen there. We're the first city in Ketchikan, Alaska. I was born and raised in Ketchikan, and I teach at the high school I graduated from. So come on and visit as soon as the pandemic is over. We would love to have you. Let's see here. Hopefully I can move my screen. There we go. So peace education is near and dear to my heart, and I work closely with a wonderful group of students through Rotary Interact. And I'll talk more toward the end of the presentation about how I work specifically with these students on peace programs at our school. But speaking of Rotary, yesterday, February 23rd, was Rotary's World Understanding and Peace Day. So it's timely that we're here together talking about peace education. I am also a peace teacher with the United States Institute of Peace. And while I'm not speaking on behalf of USIP, I am really excited to share with you today some of my own perspectives about peace and some of the things that I've learned through being part of that unique program. What follows in this presentation are some strategies and ideas for implementing peace in your classrooms. And I'm sure that everything I've learned and picked up and used currently, I have gathered from some master teacher out there. So I've tried my best to cite my sources in this presentation and whatever else I credit to the generous fellowship that exists among educators. So today in this presentation, I'd like us to start by defining peace and exploring what peace education is all about. I'm hoping that you will be able to consider some ways that you could integrate some peace education practices into your current teaching. I'll share some resources with you as well. At the end, I'll give you a resource page with all of the links to everything in this presentation. And I'd like us to conclude by asking you to think about taking the Peace Day Challenge. So to get this started, let's explore this question together and maybe take a few minutes to think about what is peace and what does peace mean to you? And if you could go ahead and post those in the chat, that would be wonderful.
Ah, I love it. The whole world living in harmony, calmness, harmony among us, tolerance, a calm acceptance, tranquility, equality. Oh my gosh, are wonderful. Sarah, they really tell a story. Meditation, mindfulness. Uh-oh, someone has 7 kids and is a teacher, not sure. Contentment, that one works for me.
Yeah.
Find, yeah, let's go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah, and just based on the responses so far, this is fantastic. And as you can see, there's really more than one way to define peace. And so when we talk about how do we teach peace in our classrooms or integrate peace into our daily lives, there's more than one way to go about doing that. It's certainly a complex term. But many of you, I think, Googled, no, here's Webster's dictionary, right? So it's a freedom from disturbance. You mentioned tranquility, a state of, no war would definitely be there. And again, somebody said harmony, which is great. So, one thing I think to think about when we approach peace and peace education, peace is really not the absence of conflict. Conflict is such a natural part of the human experience. But when we work with our students, particularly, we want to stress that there are peaceful ways to handle conflict. There are nonviolent approaches to resolving conflict. And so that's really what we're after, is trying to help provide that peace within, that balance that I heard somebody mention, and also equip our students with conflict resolution strategies so that they can identify how they naturally approach conflict, and then some other non-violent ways, some more peaceful ways to deal with their conflict in their lives that they experience. Most definitely. So again, peace education is incredibly complex and it's multidimensional. To help us kind of frame our discussion of peace education, I'd like us to look at this particular image here. And I'm not as tech savvy and I can't make it spin and rotate, so I'll break it out for you. But I found this from the South Asian Journal for Peace Building and felt like it did a pretty nice job of incorporating all of the different ways we can think about peace and go about teaching peace. So they break it out into these 3 categories here. And this first one is peace within the body. And this is talking about harmony and tolerance and empathy and having that strength of peace within. So as educators, we often talk about this as SEL, or social emotional learning. And Sanford, who is sponsoring this virtual summit, has 2 great platforms that you might already be familiar with. One is Sanford Inspire, and the other one is Harmony. And they provide free professional development resources for teachers, and then also some lessons that can be used at home with parents working with their kids, or also in the classroom. These SEL lessons provide students with the opportunity to set goals, to feel and show empathy for each other, to establish and maintain healthy relationships, and to really work on making responsible decisions. SEL is something that we know is being taught in K-12 education. And on my summers when I go off to university for some professional development, I've even seen this at the college level, which is exciting. So SEL, right at the heart of this is peace education, definitely. On this one, oh, sorry about that. I'm still at school. So yeah, so it's real. I just said goodbye to my students, and then here I am talking with each of you. So no more bells, I promise. On this one right here, I wanted to kind of highlight this idea about behavior being language, because before our students can really engage into this practice of being peaceful within, Empathy is first necessary. Empathy is this ability to see, feel, and understand the world from another person's perspective. And for young children, especially, they often need some help in identifying their own emotions, so that they can also then look and decipher and decode others' emotions. And so Stanford has this empathy lesson where it helps teachers work with students to decipher and read facial expressions. How do you know when someone is sad? What are they doing with their body or their face that's telling you that? What does it look like when somebody is happy? And behavior is language, which is why it's so critical for our students to learn how to decipher and decode both verbal and nonverbal communication as a way to achieve peace within. So on this slide right here, you'll see a game that is featured on the Sanford Harmony's 5th and 6th grade empathy lesson. And this one is called To Change Like a Caterpillar. And you can see that students would work together to kind of navigate a little game piece through the board here. And they really work through, as a group, through these kind of situational cards. And you can see here where it says, your friend got into an argument because one of your friends heard he was talking behind your back. He calls you on the phone next week and admits he was wrong. He apologizes and says that it won't happen again, and you forgive him. And so then what the students do is they work on talking about, hey, this is an example of forgiveness. And, why might one be willing to forgive? Well, it's this idea of being able to change, and, people are capable of change. And so we're going to give this second chance. And so really, this is a positive game that kids can play with their classmates to then work to create a culture of peace within the classroom. Let's see. To advance my slide. Another way to think about peace education, and many of you put this in the chat, was through mindfulness exercises. This is my girlfriend's son, and he attends a school in Southern California, and she shared this with me of their classroom here. They were in kindergarten, and so they were practicing just some quiet thinking and mindfulness exercises within their classroom. And, this is really effective in helping students to become more familiar with self-awareness and empathy, and really some techniques, learning these techniques to quiet the mind. I was first introduced to mindfulness a few years ago with a teacher friend of mine. I'd never heard of it before. And we were talking, and she said, you know what, my students just love Mondays. I'm thinking, why do your students love Mondays? I teach high school, and they, are coming in tired. And she said, well, because we do mindfulness, and they start calling it Mindful Monday, and they love coming on in. So anyway, she got me excited to learn more about this, and I looked into it and found that it is really a good way to calm, self-regulate, and to de-stress. So you might be familiar with these, but I thought we would try a couple together and then kind of see what you think. So for this first one here, it's called, finger holds for managing stress. And I've used this with my high school students. I introduced it to them, and then now I see them on their own doing this. So basically what it is, you have your hand, right? And each finger corresponds with an organ in the body, and each finger corresponds with an emotion that we might feel. So I love this one for the thumb because, that's the worry one, right? And often with little kids especially, you'll see, if they might be worried or stressed, they might be the thumb sucker. Well, by the time you're in high school, you can't alleviate your worries by sucking your thumb in school because we don't want to put things in our mouth, especially now with the pandemic. So the idea is you hold your thumb and just kind of squeeze. And by holding your thumb, it might help to absolve some of your worries and your stress. And if nothing else, you could close your eyes, just give yourself a nice little thumb massage. It feels delightful. I kind of laugh at the anger one. I've been teaching for 21 years, and fortunately, I've never had a teenager give me the angry finger, which I suppose is a good thing. But maybe if one kiddo did at some point, I might say, hey, rather than flash that, why don't you put it in a finger hold? And you and I can have a chat in 3 to 5 minutes when you calm down. So anyway, I don't know how that makes you feel, or if this might be something you could use with students to give it a shot, but my high school kids like it. Another class favorite, so I'm just kind of sharing with you the true tried winners, is the third eye. So put your hands together in kind of a prayer position, if you would. And with your index fingers, you just kind of like lower your head right here into your third eye, or that pressure point right between your eyes. Go ahead and close your eyes. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Ah, feels pretty good. I also like to modify this by using the pads of my thumb. And I kind of just put the pads of my thumb. I do almost like a weird moose thing here. But if I put them in the pressure point right in the corner of my eyes, this feels amazing. I don't know. I mean, I wear a mask all day at school, like many of you probably do too. And it's great because it keeps us safe and it keeps us in school. But I am noticing quite a bit more sinus pressure. So this is something that I like to do. Again, I teach high school. So this past fall was pretty stressful. We were coming back into a school environment full time. COVID hit our school and our community in Ketchikan, Alaska. We had to shift to kind of more of an online presence. We were in school, we were out of school. Things were pretty stressful. And so I worked on this idea of resiliency and this piece within my students. And each week I gave them different resiliency challenges. And one week we looked at yoga, and we did some yoga within the classroom, just some stretches and breathing. And then I kind of sent them off on their own. And I said, hey, give it a shot. Let's see how you feel and keep track of it. And they just kind of had to journal how they did with yoga throughout the week and how it made them feel. And many of them reported back that they felt better, they felt calmer, they felt just kind of more alert and awake in general. And many of them were brand new to this idea of yoga. They had never done it before. So Yoga with Adrienne is free and it's on YouTube. And, there's lots of great ones out there. I just found she was pretty easy for my students to use, and it became quite comfortable for them. You can see the alarm clock. I had my students look at the power of sleep and healthy sleep habits. And so again, they set themselves some sleep goals, like times they wanted to go to bed, times they wanted to wake up, and they tracked that and they charted it. In our school, we spent about 4 weeks at 50% capacity. And so one group of my students would show up to school on Monday and Wednesday. And one group, then on Tuesday and Thursday, they would stay home, and then we'd switch. And what was happening with my teenagers, they would wake up early for school on Monday. They had Tuesday at home, so they would sleep in. And then that meant Wednesday, they were super tired. And so they just got into this really unhealthy sleep schedule. And so I had them keep track of it, and again, had really, really good results. The headphones down at the bottom, we just created a playlist of music, and I had them, which songs make you the happiest, and create a playlist. And then we shared it with each other, and then we listened to some of them in class, and it really was a nice positive boost for us. You might also use the Tibetan bell here. I have students, the singing bowl, they love to play with this and they use it. But this might help to guide some mindfulness thinking. Some people call these meditations. Some schools have rules against meditation. It's associated with Eastern philosophy practices, same with yoga. So, kind of the terminology we might use might be different in our schools. But definitely it's this idea of working to calm within, because if you're calm within, then you can handle, things better that are thrown at you, if you can find a way to self-regulate and de-stress. So if we could at this point go into some breakout rooms, it might be an opportunity for you just to say hello to whoever you're in a room with. But really what I was hoping you could talk about, I'll give you guys about 4 or 5 minutes, is to think about how you might go about implementing some of these mindfulness and SEL practices into your current teaching. And maybe you're already using them, which is fantastic. So could you maybe speak to how you are using them, and maybe one that might be most successful to share with another teacher friend out there? Okay, so I'm hoping Margaret, our moderator, can help us put everybody in breakout rooms, and I'll see you back in a bit.
Okay, Sarah, I think everyone's back.
Okay, had to get all my settings here correctly again. I had a great time meeting the people in my breakout room and hearing that, yes, definitively people use these practices effectively with their students. And we even had one in my room who's a coordinator and a trainer for mindfulness for her district. So I think that's pretty impressive, right? To see how far public education is going in trying to integrate these SEL practices and essentially peace education. We may not call it peace education, but that's really what it is. So let's see here. The next kind of thematic view of peace education would be looking at the natural balance within nature. And if we think about, the ecology, if we think about, our world, if we think about sustainability, all this kind of plays into this idea of peace within nature. And in 2019, the United Nations theme for Peace Day was climate action for peace. And really the goal for the UN was to draw importance to our interactions with our natural world as a way to protect and promote peace throughout the world. And if you think about it, our environment can cause a great deal of international conflict for us. Just this past fall, we had forest fires in California, in Oregon, Washington, and Colorado. They were devastating. I'm an Asian literature teacher and spend a great deal of time working with Japan. And so when I think about the triple disaster that happened there in 2011 with first the earthquake, then the tsunami, and then the nuclear meltdown, we can see that our environment does play a role, an integral role in our daily lives. And so providing students with an opportunity to explore their relationship with nature is also a way to go about strengthening natural balance and peace. So an easy entry point for educators to bring in nature into our curriculum might be by exploring Earth Day and taking the Earth Day challenge. Roots and Shoots, if you guys are familiar with the Jane Goodall Foundation, the gorillas, and there's this rootsandshoots.org, and every year they offer an Earth Day challenge, and it's in and around April 22nd. Because April 22nd is Earth Day. But this might be a way for you to go ahead and take a challenge. You could register now, and when they set up their challenge, they'll send you an email prompting you with really great resources and ideas that you can bring into your classroom. As I mentioned in the intro, I live in Ketchikan, Alaska. We're an island community located in the Pacific Ocean. And one of the curriculum units that our fourth graders do is they look at the life cycle of the Pacific salmon. And Ketchikan is the salmon capital of the world also. So you can come here and catch lots and lots of fish. But as part of this fourth grade curriculum, the students studied all about the salmon. And this was not my project, but led by a great colleague of mine here in Ketchikan. The students, after figuring out all about the salmon, were very concerned about our oceans and our waters. And so they wanted to get rid of plastic bags in Ketchikan. So they designed the bag that you see in the lower left-hand corner of the screen. They sold it at the grocery store and as part of their project. And it was generated by students, this idea by students, and it came about just as part of their science curriculum of studying about fish. But I thought it was a really great example to share with you of a social action project and an example of peace education. We don't often think about it in that way, but in looking at being in balance and harmony with our natural environment, that's definitely also a way to go about peace education. I am an Asian literature teacher, and so as part of studying Asian literature, we deal with different philosophies, both Taoism, Buddhism, and so as an introduction to our Japanese literature unit and looking at Taoism, I shared this image of a landscape painting with my students, as a way then to kind of get them started of thinking about some of these Eastern philosophies that they're going to see integrated within the literature that we read. And reading an image, I think, is a really important skill for students to have, especially in this, visually rich environment that we live in. So I present this image and I ask the students to break it into quadrants, kind of like in a math class along the x-axis and the y-axis. And I tell the students then, okay, I just want you to focus in on quadrant 1. And what do you see here? And of course, students are going to say, oh, I see a tree. I see kind of some fog. And then what do you see in quadrant 2? Some mountains, the side of a cliff. What do you see in quadrant 3? Oh, I see a house, a couple houses, maybe a village. There's a path. Is that a man on the path? And then the last one, quadrant 4, of course, they notice the tree right away. And then a boat. Do you guys see the boat in the lower right-hand corner? And then they're saying, oh, is that a stream, a lake, maybe an ocean? And so in closely inspecting this image in all of these different ways, I would then ask my students to think about how they see people interacting with their environment. And one thing a lot of students are very quick to notice is that the environment seems to be the dominant image. They had to look really hard to find the man on the path, if that is what that is there. And so they really see that, man is maybe not as important as the environment, but yet it all seems to be working and functioning together in a harmonious way. And I always like to end kind of our read of the image by saying, if you were to give this image a title, what would it be? And so, again, with peace education and looking at our interactions with nature and our balance with nature, this might be something that you could do in your classroom. It doesn't have to be a landscape Japanese painting. You could also bring in images, or again, get outside and go on those field trips, and students could take pictures and share them and think about what they see and what they know for those observations. The third theme, thanks to this South Asian Journal of Peace Building, for how to look at peace, is health and peace with others. And so we think about conflict resolution, we think about economic security, the promotion of common good, critical participation, democracy, right? And as a literature teacher, this is where I spend a great deal of my time. And these are books that I have used successfully with my high school students, even though some of the Lexile levels are pretty low and they could be read in middle school or even upper elementary. The content of all of these books is pretty sophisticated, everything from war, displacement, genocide, and really some challenging situations for the characters in this book. But one reason why I like to share them is because through these challenges, there's always that, example of resiliency and perseverance. And then, viewing the world through a different lens is how we go about building empathy and fostering peace within our students. So how did I become a peace teacher? It was because of a trip I took in 2013. I was selected by the 5 College Center for East Asian Studies to go visit Hiroshima and Nagasaki to learn about peace education in Japan. These students who you see here with me spent the day with me in Hiroshima, where they took me through the Peace Park, and they shared.
We can't hear you, Sarah. We lost audio.
Let's see.
You're doing great, Sarah. We can hear you.
We can hear you.
Yeah, maybe someone else that lost audio, but go ahead and continue, Sarah. You're doing great.
Okay, great. So these students walked me through the Peace Park and shared what peace meant to them, and how they looked at peace education, and what better place to do that than in Hiroshima, who had the atomic bomb dropped on their city in 1945. It made such an impression upon me. this trip. It was a 2-week trip that I said, I have to bring this back to my students. And so this is really this third thematic way about teaching about peace, right? But I looked at the essential question of how can individuals and societies remember and commemorate difficult histories? What is the purpose of remembering and what are the consequences of forgetting? And so what I asked my students in my Asian literature class to do was to examine monuments from the different peace parks. We also looked at testimonies of survivors. And so I want to share these with you now, just briefly, to give you a sense of how I went about, building this lesson. So you could take an experience that you've had in your life, a trip, a book, whatever it might be, and somehow incorporate and bring that back in to a peace education lesson. So the two monuments that you see on your screen here, the one on the left is from Nagasaki and the one on the right is from Hiroshima. And right away, when I have my students look at these, I ask them, what do they see? How does the image make them feel? What questions do they have? If you were to give it a title, what would it be, right? I ask them these guiding questions, and they can work in small groups, or you can do this independently and then jigsaw back out, however you want to do. But, the students are really captured by both of these. And right away, of course, they notice there's an adult looking very sad and devastated and holding, a young child, right? And so there's sorrow and there's deep, deep sadness and loss in both of these monuments. But there's also an element of hope. On the one on the left, if you look at the base of the statue, you'll see a dove, which is symbolic of hope. And on the one on the right, you can see the origami paper cranes in the background that really enclose and center in around this monument. And so that's the takeaway. If you've ever been to these monuments in Japan, you'll realize it isn't one of anger or one of wanting revenge. It's one of, hey, this is what happened and this is how it feels. But also we have a hope for the future, which is peaceful and one that includes nonviolence, right? So another monument that I like to pair together and have my students, and these are high school students that I have them look at, the cenotaph that you guys will see here on the right, this is in Hiroshima. This is designed to kind of intentionally serve as a barrier and a protection for the people who passed. And if you see within in the center there, the names of the victims are placed within that box, that exhibit. And it says, let all the souls rest here in peace, for we shall not repeat the evil. If you look at Constellation Earth, and I'm just always just taken by this, and I love working with it with students because they pull so much meaning out of it. This monument or memorial was actually donated to Nagasaki by St. Paul, Minnesota. And St. Paul, Minnesota in the US has the longest relationship of a sister city with Japan. And again, I would ask my students guiding questions here to help them kind of pull out the meaning that they see behind this. But just kind of for time's sake, we notice that these figures are intertwined and connected. They're all holding on to each other. They're in a circle, so students are like, oh, a circle, oh, like the earth, okay, because I don't give them the titles. And then they start to kind of think about, well, why no clothes? And why are there seven continents, the earth? This idea that when we take everything away, right, when we strip ourselves of our exterior kind of identifiers, at the core, we're all just humans. And at the core, we're all interconnected and we're all together. And that's the wish, that's the desire, that's what's being shared in these monuments here. So another powerful exhibit that I encountered in Japan was pictures from survivors. This one here on the screen that you can see, the victim of the Hiroshima bombings was 65 at the time of the drawing, and remembering back to being 8 years old when this bomb was dropped. Again, the accounting of fire, the heat, trying to find shelter. But I thought that was pretty telling that all those years later, here is the visual testimony or record. And so I have my students analyze this image and try to get a sense of, again, what is the voice? You know, with empathy, we don't want to just view something from our own perspective. We want to put ourselves in the shoes of somebody else. How did they see it? What happened to them? What did they experience? Here's another one, 70 at the time of the drawing and 20 at the time of the bombing. So again, these are pretty graphic and sophisticated images, not at all appropriate for young kids. You know, I teach upper 11th and 12th grade, but definitely would provide a valuable primary source in a classroom for students to use. This one, dead mother and child still standing next to the water tub trying to fight the fires. This man right here, we spent the afternoon with him. He survived the atomic bombings. He was in high school at the time when the bomb went off, and he was sitting in math class at 8:15 in the morning when he heard the sirens, saw 2 B-29 bombers fly overhead, and then he said he felt a sudden flash, a sunset world, a heat wave, and shock all at the same time. And so he was 16 years old when this happened to him. Again, he didn't want revenge. He wasn't angry. He didn't have any hate. His message was, it is important to remember a bitter event and to learn from it. People are all the same, and we need to cooperate to eliminate nuclear war. That was his message. He went on to be a high school principal. And I thought that was great to then know that he was working with kids and sharing his message and hope for the future. You might be familiar with Sadako and the 1,000 paper cranes. You might have folded origami paper cranes, and you know that if you put these together, they represent peace. And 1,000 of them, the idea is that you can make a wish and it will come true. Sadako was 2 when the bomb was dropped on Hiroshima, and you can see her brother there, Masahiro, he was 4. I was able to meet with Masahiro and our travel group. This is the group of educators who I traveled with in 2013. And again, his message was quite powerful. He spoke of his sister's life. He spoke of his sister's death. He said that his sister was a young woman of peace. And his message absolutely was, we need to open our hearts in order to achieve peace. We need to create hearts of sympathy and compassion in our children, because this is the best way to communicate. So it was because of this trip, and it was because of meeting Masahiro and meeting the others, that I just felt very strongly that peace is something that belongs in public schools, in learning, in education. It's a way to open up communication. It's a way to, gain confidence within yourself. And it's definitely a way to move forward positively and create a world and a vision that we all want in our lives. So let's see here. I like to start any new unit by looking at an essential question. And I know we all have prescribed curriculums that we need to follow. Again, at my level, I'm pretty free, to kind of pick a topic, work around an essential question. And so I have a couple just flashed on the screen that, you could actually use, I think, at any grade. You would have to definitely scaffold and diversify, the materials. But again, these are great questions for our students to explore and consider. And I have this all on a resource page if you would like these as well. Okay, so let's watch this.
September 21st is the International Day of Peace.
And the U.S. Institute of Peace wants your help to make it count. It's more than just another taco day.
Pie day. Millennial Appreciation Day. Talk like a pirate, dude. On September 21st, we're turning the Day of Peace into the Day of Action.
Into a day of action.
With the Peace Day Challenge.
Challenge yourself to do something that will make your world more peaceful.
Talk to someone who doesn't look like you.
Speak up when you see someone being intolerant.
Volunteer for a cause you care about.
Learn how to resolve conflicts without violence.
Then challenge others to do the same.
Use hashtag Peace Day Challenge to issue your challenge.
Hashtag Peace Day Challenge.
And discover what others are doing.
Join us.
Join the United States Institute of Peace.
Join millions of people from around the world.
Take the Peace Day Challenge.
Take the Peace Day Challenge. Take it.
Take the Peace Day Challenge.
It's so inspiring. We did take the Peace Day Challenge at our school at Ketchikan High School, and we are now in our 4th year here at K High, right? Ketchikan, so we call ourselves K High. And we started by planting a peace pole. We have a peace pole featured, as you can see here. It's located in our commons. And this pole I saw on my trip to Japan, and they were everywhere. And again, it has the phrase on there, "May peace prevail on earth." And so at our school in Southeast Alaska, we have indigenous tribes, Haida, Tlingit, and Tsimshian. And so we worked with the elders in our community to translate this phrase, "May peace prevail on earth," into those indigenous languages. We also have Japanese there because that's the origins of the pole. We have Tagalog because we have a vibrant Filipino community in Ketchikan. And we also have English for the language that we all speak together. This pole is something that students walk past every single day. And we've planted a garden around it that is just thriving and beautiful, okay? Our theme for this year was shaping peace together. And we created, so the students I showed you at the beginning, they helped, right, create all of these fun events. And we basically had like a spirit week, and it was all about peace. So it's fun little activities. We had a sticker contest. And so students designed images, and I made them into stickers with the help of this wonderful online program. And then we gave them to all of the kids. We have a high school of about 600. You guys can see the king salmon up there at the top. That's our mascot, by the way, is a fish, the king salmon. We're the K-High Kings. And so we then shared these with the students, and of course they're on water bottles and they're all over their laptops, and it's wonderful. One year I made wristbands. Our colors are maroon and white, and so I still see kids wearing these 2 years later. And again, we call our celebrations Kings for Peace. And this year that I did this, the theme was "What You Do Matters." Every year we make white ribbons. And so you can see Evelyn here in my classroom. She's helping me make all these white ribbons, and then we bag them up and we give them to the homeroom class. And so every student will wear white. And on Wednesdays during Peace Week, we all wear white. And I just knew it, that this year someone would put the ribbon on the face mask. And sure enough, I got a picture of this kiddo doing that. So he still has his peace ribbon on this face mask, by the way. And it's February and Peace Day is in September. And you can see those other kiddos wearing white there. They get really excited about this. One year we had a graffiti wall where we asked the question, right, for our theme, which was "What matters to you?" And throughout the week, students just went and filled it up. And what a great public testimony and something for our school culture to put down what they care about and what's important to them. And so it was beautiful to see what they all created. This year, we couldn't meet in person, so all of our activities were virtually and socially distanced. But I loved it because in September, we flooded social media, mostly Instagram and Facebook, with positive messages. And you could go and look up hashtag Kings for Peace to kind of see what students and people posted. But I thought it was pretty great because some of social media got a bit negative this fall. We also, I'm really proud about this, had a community event where we teamed up to raise awareness for suicide prevention. And the community came. It was an outdoor event. And we held tie-dyeing face mask stations so people could tie-dye a face mask. And then we displayed these flags. I put out a call to all the teachers in the school, in our district. In our district, 2,200 kids. And I said, can you have your students make like a little paper flag of what peace means to them? And so what we wanted to do was create an outdoor exhibit where we featured this, and I'll show you these. But I opened up my school envelope, it comes through interschool mail. And here's something that was created by a 4th grade classroom. And blew my mind away, because here are 4th graders, and these 4th graders are making these beautiful, beautiful flags here. This was from a 2nd grade classroom. Don't be afraid to stand out. And all I asked was, what does peace mean to you, or what's your wish for the community? And this is what the kids created. Kindergartners, they traced their hands and then they wrote things on them and colored and decorated. This was a 5th grade classroom, and they worked this into kind of a geometry lesson. Here are the high school students who helped hang these flags, and we had over 300 of them. It was really, really pretty. And if you've never been to Ketchikan before, we're also the rain capital of the world. And so it's amazing that we had this outdoor event in September, and it was beautiful. That is not Photoshopped. That's really Ketchikan. It was just glorious. And so we hung these up, and the wind was blowing, and so they look like Tibetan prayer flags was really what they are. So I'm pretty proud of this, because it was a community effort and something that all of the schools participated in. Just real quick, I know we're running kind of short on time here. The Peace Proclamation, these students wrote this proclamation and presented it to our government officials, and both of the mayors, the city mayor and borough mayor, signed off on it and presented this to the students at their meeting. So I thought that was pretty powerful. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I did a TikTok dance and then put this out there, and all the students tried to emulate it. The dance team did, the basketball team did, and we put this out over social media too. So maybe I'll embarrass myself and show you a bit. So as you can see, it's really fun. I'll do anything to raise awareness for peace. And that's the idea behind, Peace Week really, is we're just trying to, remind people that, hey, September 21st is the International Day of Peace. What's peace all about? I really see kids fostering new connections, eating lunch with kids that they've never eaten lunch with. They're thinking creatively, they're trying new things. I really do feel that since we've been, as a school, celebrating the International Day of Peace, it's really helped build a culture, a positive culture, school climate within our school here at Ketchikan High School. So if you're interested in taking the Peace Day Challenge, you can start out by just focusing in on that one day. And that's all we did in the beginning. But now we'll be in our 5th year. I mean, this thing is growing. The kids love it and they look forward to it. And I'm so happy that they come with ideas. Hey, let's do this next year for Peace Week. So it's really something that is alive and well at Ketchikan High School. And I really hope you can bring it into your classroom, into your school, and into your community. So with that, I'd like to say thank you. I will share this in the chat. It's a resource page with lots of ideas. And thanks for remembering that peace is possible. It takes action, and it takes all of us. Thank you. Are there?
Oh my goodness. Oh goodness, Sarah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I know all of us, we have spent these wonderful moments with you. I know people are going to chime in. Please, everybody, send Sarah your thank you. Shortly, you'll receive a survey by email, and we encourage you to fill it out. Sarah, your kudos. Thank you so very, very much, Sarah, again. And remember, each time you fill out a survey to you're eligible for a raffle prize. So please have a great day. We look forward to you joining us tomorrow. And Sarah, a million hugs. Everybody join in, please. And thanks, Sarah, for her great job.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Sarah. Great job.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. Peace, everybody.